America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please silence your phones and pagers. First item, do we have any citizen concerns? Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll move the agenda.
Second. Motion by Radig, second by Taylor. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Items 3 through 8 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3 is approval of the minutes of the July 10, 2018 meeting. 4, approval of claims. 5, board administration. Approval of resolutions naming depositories for the county auditor and county treasurer. 6, human resources. Approval of memorandum and personnel transactions. 7 is county sheriff. Receive county sheriff's reports of unadjudicated condemnation funds now held by the sheriff's office. Item 8, community economic development. Receive quarterly report on rural comprehensive planning project. I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Radig. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 9 is presentation of an award certificate to Dawn LaFave. She is not here. What's that? Would you come up and expound on the benefits of?
So Dawn, Melissa Thomas, Human Resources. Dawn is receiving 4 PTU hours for 1 gallon of blood that she has donated. So this is a program that we do, and also with the city we work together to make sure that everybody receives the benefit of the PTU hours. So good job, Dawn.
Okay. We have a fixed item at 4:37. Do you have an opinion on that, Mr. Gill, if you started early or wait?
I think we can start. I'll go ahead and explain it to you if you'd like to start.
Yes, please.
What we're proposing is to, we requested RFPs from vendors in Iowa for voting equipment. There are 3 vendors in Iowa that are certified. We have received bids from 2 of those vendors, and one of those is the vendor that they're using at this time. We have 44 precincts in Woodbury County. I held off. We actually borrowed this money a while ago, but I've been holding off in order to see if the legislation would change that we would be able to use vote centers in the general election and the primary election. The Secretary of State was supportive of that legislation, but it has not passed. We also waited because previous experience when we replaced machines before, we were trying to get them replaced, and that was when the Help America Vote Act money came available, and they actually purchased the machines. I think that was in about 2005, and those are the machines that we are currently using. At that time, the federal money became available. Right now, the federal government did issue more Help America Vote Act money, but it doesn't appear that that is going to be able to flow out to the counties. They are going to be using that money for cybersecurity, for voter registration. That's what the kind of message that we're getting from the Secretary of State's office. So we've decided to proceed with going ahead and purchasing this equipment. the vendors that we've talked to are confident that we could get it in place for the general election, but I'm going to leave that up to our Deputy Commissioner of Elections to make that determination whether he feels comfortable that we're going to be able to do that. But at this time, we want to proceed to go forward with the machines, our purchase of the machines. We did borrow $500,000, I think, for that, and we're hopeful that that comes in and under that, and it allows us to use the balance of that money to purchase electronic poll books, the next generation of electronic poll books at that point. But we'll see when those, what the RFPs result in, and we also have the ability to negotiate with the with the successful vendor at that point to determine some of the things that we've asked for in this RFP. The Board of Supervisors, they are actually the folks that, you are the folks who make the determination of what machines we purchase. Once the machines are purchased, they're turned over and they are in the custody of the County Commissioner of Elections at that point.
You'll be opening those today then and announcing what those competitive bids are? Thank you.
We need to open the public hearing.
Yes.
The public hearing is now open for comments for and against.
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I will motion by Taylor, second by Young, to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
There should be 7 copies of each RFP from the 2 vendors. You'll all receive one. Steve and I will get the others. And then we're going to recommend that you receive them and turn them over to us for a recommendation.
Steve Huffmeyer, Deputy Commissioner of Elections. I've got 2 bids here to open, starting by opening the one from Henry Atkins.
Their security's as good as the way they knock them out.
I know, I noticed that. They brought in a utility knife.
Thank you.
You just hand them down.
Attachment A.
Okay.
You look on page 73 of 76.
Is that?
Yep.
This here? Okay.
So they're proposing that we need to, for 44 precincts, they're proposing that we purchase 54. And their total hardware cost is $483,580. They do have an Iowa discount and trade for $428,781. Any questions on that?
Do we, in these, compare the total annual license and maintenance when we try to figure that out, or that's something I assume that you'll look at it in comparison with the other one? Okay.
We have several criteria that was mentioned in the RFP, and that's what Steve and I will be looking at as we make our recommendations. Okay. You can go ahead and open the next one.
This next one's going to be from ES&S.
ES&S is the current vendor that we use.
Thank you.
First one to find it should get a prize.
Steve, what page is the?
No, it doesn't give a page number on here.
Is it in the envelope, a separate envelope?
It gives me this one here.
Okay.
Doesn't give a page number, but this one's showing total hardware costs of $473,456, and then software costs of $21,365, and then it's got trade allowance in there for us, and with the trade allowance taken into account, the total cost there is $414,640.61.
Does it give you, Steve, there the total annual license and maintenance by chance?
Yes, the annual fees and maintenance shows $39,305. They've got actually two options there. That's one option for it. Another option for the annual fees and maintenance is $42,065. There's two options there.
Okay. Steve, so if you want to make a motion to receive, I'll have Steve can make copies of that and bring you copies of what he's received.
Move to receive.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Reddick to receive the bids. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. And you're going to review those and...
Yes. Well, and we'll schedule a time with you to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Come up with the recommendation.
Is that it for this one?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Item 11, Board of Supervisors, update on progress of a detox center in Sioux City and Woodbury County. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we've heard in the media and firsthand the goal of acknowledging the sadly synergistic way that intoxication, homelessness, mental health end up having on systems such as the hospitals, law enforcement, to include our county jail, and the revolving door that ends up costing taxpayers and impacting lives. And we heard at a recent meeting of stakeholders all these elements, including disconnected loneliness, fragmentation, a disproportionate percentage affecting our Native American population, personal or historical trauma, the disease of alcohol, mental health concerns, and so on. So we are also poignantly reminded that taxpayer money is often poorly spent when the problem simply recurs over and again. And so we had many representatives, including myself and Supervisor Ung, and many whom are in the room today, and almost so many that I don't know where to start in introducing everyone, but to say that I think it's a poignant reminder of our community that there are so many different elements of law enforcement, our Native American advocacy, our senators and congressmen's offices represented, SHIP, Unity Point, and I'm sure I'm going to miss someone somewhere along the line. So what I'd like to do is see if you will come forward, introduce who you have with you today, and present an update for our Board of Supervisors. And we warmly welcome and thank you for being here. Thanks, Matt.
My name is Matt Oman. I'm the Executive Director of SHIP, Siouxland Human Investment Partnership. We formed the Siouxland Street Project about 2 years ago. It was a partnership between SHIP, the Sioux City Police Department, the Native American community, Mercy Medical Center, and Downtown Partners. As you can see, it's really diversified as the years have gone on. We have a lot more community partners, agencies, businesses that become involved in this. In the very beginning of the street project, we really split the issues of homelessness into two categories. One dealing with a 365, 24/7 shelter, and the other one dealing with the issue of detox. So the reason we're here today as a detox committee is to present you with an update of where we're at almost 2 years later. I do want to introduce the other members of the detox committee who are here. We have Jeff Packett, who is a member of the SHIP board. Cheetah Yang, who is an intern that is working on this project for us this summer. Jerry Hernandez with Mercy Medical Center. Mary Hendricks with Mercy Medical Center. Frank Lemire, representing the Native American community. And I'm going to ask Mr. Lemire to come up here in a minute and give you a little bit more of an update on the Indian Health Services piece. Aaron Benabus with SHIP. Kelsey Shoemaker with SHIP. Of course, you know Jacob Bossman, state legislature, but also representing Senator Grassley. Colby DeWitt, representing Representative King. Megan Simpson with Unity Point. And then, of course, we have Chief Rex Mueller, who is involved in this, and Sheriff Dave Drew. So I think everyone probably got this packet. I think we handed them out. Did you all get this? This kind of synthesizes down kind of where we're at. This talks about the June 1st meeting with Indian Health Services that we had at the Ho-Chunk Center, which a couple of you attended that meeting. But then it also goes into kind of where we're at now. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have Mr. Lemire come up and talk about where things are at with Indian Health Services as well as with Representative King's support, and then I'll come back to like the end part of this.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisors, thank you for this opportunity, and I would certainly be remiss if I did not acknowledge Matthew and Jeremy for coming over and joining a number of those gathered here and others on June the 1st at the Ho-Chunk Center. I'm going to say that in our overall effort, we will look back and we will see that June 1st was a very pivotal day. And I believe that what we saw there is our community, our Native community, the greater community took ownership of an issue that has troubled BSET, our Native and greater community, for a number of years. And that was a very, very interesting day, and much has come from that. I want to share with you, there's much been written, much been said, great pieces printed in the Sioux City Journal about the issues we're talking about here tonight. And I was looking back over those last night, some of the things that have been said and done, and I just want to remind us of something that we gather here because there's so much we can talk about. There was a quote that was attributed to me somewhere in the last weeks, and I looked at it and I said, that was good. I'm going to remember that. And it said, and I share with you as supervisors tonight, that healing begins when the talk of healing begins. And I think that captures a lot for us. And I reflect back on June the 1st, and I really feel strongly about that. I believe healing began because we came together and said we need to talk about it. And I think that discussion is going to take us somewhere in our community. I want to point out to you that on many occasions, I've stated about Woodbury County and about Sioux City, and I've represented the interests of the Native community in Washington a number of times, and I've always challenged us, myself and all the rest of us in this greater Siouxland area. I believe that we have the horses to meet the need. And, well, how could you say that, Frank? You're critical of this or this or this. I believe we have the horses to meet the need, even the needs that we bring before you. But we've got to connect the dots. And I think that's what the Street Project and SHIP and others have come together to say it's time for us to begin to connect those dots. On June the 1st, a number of individuals, a lot of them here and scores of others from the community, came together to talk a little bit about what could be and what should be for the community dealing with issues of homelessness, addiction, lack of detox, lack of a treatment center, lack of a halfway house. And a lot of that discussion early on has been driven by the Native community and with SHIP. And we have worked on this, I'm going to say almost 3 years now, because it was almost 3 years ago that representatives from SHIP, Aaron Benabuz, Matt Ullman, myself, perhaps others traveled to Rapid City, South Dakota, to meet with the head of the Indian Health Service at a national meeting they were having. And we went that summer, late summer, and we told them that they used to have an obligation to Native people in Sioux City, Iowa that they have forgotten about. We used to have a halfway house here in this community. We used to have a treatment center out by the airport. We relied on that. Law enforcement relied on it. And it was unilaterally taken from us, and I do not know why and how, but it just went away. I don't know if there were audit exceptions, process, what happened. Personally, I will state, I think that some budget somewhere in Rockville, Maryland, or Aberdeen at the area office didn't fit. Who has the least amount of political clout among the tribes in the Midwest? Who cannot give voice to those who have none? And I think they looked at Sioux City. And we lost that funding in 2007. We've always had questions about that. 3 years ago, we raised that question to the Indian Health Service. The director at that time, Mary Smith, said she would work with us. We will examine, we will see what's going on. Mary was, I'm understanding, and I gather, would have been the administrator had we not had an election in November of that year. And that pretty much set everything behind. And I'm going to say about a year and a half ago, we started that process anew. And we had gone and we had met with the Indian Health Service on several occasions. And in that collaboration, we came to a point where we said, you need to come and, you know, we can always go there hat in hand. You come to the city, you come and talk to the people. And we'll gather them together. And we were very bold in saying that, and because they know that these folks are the real article, they agreed to do that. They came over here on June the 1st, a number of principals from the Indian Health Service in Washington, D.C., and along with Congressman King's office and some of the other representatives here, and we talked a little bit about what happened with the Indian Health Service. Where did that funding go? And I will fast forward. On Friday of last week, there was a conference call between Congressman King, Sue Ann Edmiston, who we've come to know, myself, Aaron Benabuz from the Street Project. And I have grown accustomed to bureaucracy. I've grown cynical to bureaucracy, much like the rest of us. So we did that obligatory call and waited for them to perhaps pat us on the back. That did not happen. That was real. Congressman King said some things in that meeting about what he saw when he came here on June the 1st. And I'll just paraphrase what he said, and I hope he does not hold it against me. The issues brought before that office, the projects, the things they talk about, there are many of them throughout this 4th Congressional District. Many of them. I see many of them. And there was a pause, and he was on the other end of the phone. I wish I could have been a part of that discussion there, because I sensed something. And in the way he described it, he said, we see many of these things, but they don't go anywhere because there's no buy-in. And then there was a pause, and he was objective, respectful, but he said, what I saw when I came to Sioux City to the Ho Chung Center on June the 1st, I saw a buy-in. He used that. I don't know how whoever pulled them together, I don't know how they pulled them together, but they did. A number of the principals, a number of the leaders from the community came together, and I think the term that the congressman used is that he was very much impressed with that. And the reason for that meeting, and it'll be public, I'm sure, it perhaps already is that there's a letter that has been written, and it has been delivered on Friday afternoon, I understand, to the Indian Health Service in Washington, D.C., wanting to clarification about the funding that was taken from us, wanting clarification about the process, about audit exceptions, about, I think the word they even used, was there a corrective action plan? Or did you unilaterally take those dollars from us? I am anxious because that is a strongly worded letter and well thought out, took weeks to put it together, and we are waiting now, and I don't know whether it'll be hours or days, I hope not months, but we're going to get a response from the Indian Health Service. We have told them, in short, you have responsibility to Woodbury County, Iowa. You have responsibility to the Native community here to provide detox, treatment, even halfway house. We've asked for all of those things, and they are going to respond to us, and they're going to say yes, no. But whatever they do, supervisors, we did our due diligence. And if nothing comes of that, we're going to have to turn other places, and perhaps even have to turn to you. But I want you to be aware of that we are exhausting all possibilities with the Indian Health Service. I think that we're going to be hopeful. We have other speakers, but Mr. Chairman, I want to share something with you before I leave. I want you to scratch this down in your notes. The Indian Health Service did some interesting thing about a year ago that they've never done in the history of IHS. And they made units of government outside of tribal government eligible for IHS funds. Caused a great deal of consternation, even debate. What are we taking these dollars earmarked for Native reservations and communities? What are we doing giving them to units of government? The unit of government that I understand a huge appropriation went to was Gallup, New Mexico. Gallup, legendary for the problems they have with alcoholism, drug abuse, homelessness, addiction. Worst case scenario perhaps in the country. But however the congressional delegations came together down there, they did. And they found a substantial appropriation for Gallup, New Mexico to deal with a demonstration program to deal with issues. That funding, and I share this with you, that funding came about because of an appropriation on the day that White Clay, Nebraska was closed, where they stopped the illegal flow of alcohol from Nebraska onto Pine Ridge, the most devastated of all of the reservations, and some of you know something that we were very much involved with. And I will even from time to time, Native people said, Frank, it took 20 years, you shut down White Clay, why can you not now make impact where you live? That's what we have set about to do. And I want us to be mindful of the Gallup Initiative. And I'm understanding that the good congressman is studying the Gallup Initiative, and that he may even call the delegation from Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa together to deal with the issues here. So we have done our homework, and we hope it goes somewhere, but if it does not, we're going to be back, and we will, we have all voiced as a committee a simple truth. And that simple truth is we have a need for detox. We have a need to address alcoholism and addiction. We have a need for halfway house in the community. That's the truth. Everybody, irrespective of who they are, native, non-native, agree with that in our efforts to address homelessness. That's a simple truth. And our group have resolved that we're going to stand with that truth until we get this done. And we'll do it in partnership with you, and a grand partnership we probably know nothing about. Taking way too much time. Mr. Chairman, thank you all, and thank you, and IHS will be back. The next time they come back, they should be here. You ask them the same questions. What about our people? And then you can tell them that in Woodbury County we're better than to let this go. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to draw your attention to in this packet. Our committee has been meeting, like I said, for a while. We're really starting to try to drill down what the details are going to be of what this place is going to look like. If you look at the back of your packet, it says Rapid City Detox Model. We took a trip to Rapid City. We've taken a couple trips to Rapid City. But they have a really good model there for a detox center. It is a collaboration between the city, the county, the hospitals that are there, as well as private donations. That's kind of how they get all of their funding. That one is a little bit bigger, and it's got a budget of about $3.5 million. We're looking at something a little smaller to get started here, probably about 10 beds, and looking at a budget probably around $1.5 million a year is what it would cost to provide this service. So if you look at in this packet, there's a lot of data in here that kind of focuses on the Sioux City Police Department, the jail, the hospitals, district court administration. But if you go to this page, it says annual economic impact. That kind of synthesizes it all down. So if you look at that total number of what the cost is to our community right now, it's a little over $2 million a year. And that does not include court fees, and then UniPoint is not included in those numbers. So if we look at a detox center, that would cost, and this is an estimate of $1.5 million, that would be about $500,000 that would be saved each year. If we keep doing things the way that we're doing it now, which is basically sending people to the hospitals to detox if they're intoxicated on the streets, and then just cycling them right out the door, and then they just keep coming back, and it just keeps costing us more and more money. Our hope is with a detox center that would specialize in that detox, we would be able to get some of those wraparound services in there so that we can get people a continuum of care rather than just back out on the streets. And hopefully then we would cut down on the recidivism of them just continuing on that cycle. So what we're looking at for funding right now, and this is also a couple pages back in the packet, right now we have, thanks to all of the press that's gone on around homelessness and detox, the Indian Health Services meeting, we have someone in the community that wants to come forward, a private citizen that has a considerable amount of funds that they want to donate to this project. We also are planning on going to City Council next Monday. Like Frank has mentioned, we are pursuing IHS for potential future funding source. And I think, they do have an obligation to this community. And then through that, we're looking at a potential congressional appropriation through IHS, like what happened in Gallup and White Clay. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Like I said, we have a lot of details to drill down. We don't have a location yet, but we have several locations that we're looking at. We don't know who the provider is going to be yet. We have a couple of different interested parties that would be a medical provider. So it would start off probably as a social detox center, and then it would transition into a medical detox center. A medical detox center takes a while to get accredited, as you all well know. We also know that the state is going to be required to have access centers within a couple of years. And so we're very interested in how this might fit into something like that. But we also know that there is a huge need right now, and seeing as how that might take a couple years, we'd really like to establish something. Don't know if I missed anything or if anyone else has anything that they want to add. Yeah.
My name is Jerry Hernandez, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Mercy Medical Center. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. Every 3 years, both hospitals and the district health department, we conduct what's called a community health needs assessment. So it's sort of a health check for our communities to see where we're at. And then we find out what the top needs are. Whatever the top 7 needs we dictate, we find out. We do focus groups. We collaborate with agencies that work in the community providing social services, and we get feedback from them. And so every 3 years we come up with the top needs. So the top needs that are continuing to come up every 3 years is detox, is mental health, is substance abuse, is homelessness, housing. Those seem to be one of the top reoccurring things that we have. So we see that, I'll just give you a backdrop here. Mercy and St. Luke's and Jackson Recovery have attempted to do something similar, but I believe that the reason why that hasn't happened is because this is much bigger than the 2 hospitals or any 1 or 2 agencies to tackle. So with that being said, this is a community problem, and when people break civic law, everybody's absorbing this, the county jails, the city police, the hospitals, and it's a reoccurring broken system. So I believe that we are being bad stewards of our money by not addressing this issue, and this is a way to do that. For the fiscal year of 2018, we ended up with 3,397 homeless individuals who were treated at our hospital. We don't have that many homeless people in our community, but most of those are due to either alcoholism, substance abuse, something they're having to do because of. So with that being said, we really need to do something where the county is involved, the city's involved, and both hospitals. We're here because we see the problem. We try to address it, but we need the whole entire community behind us. So we've seen models working in other places, and I just believe that it would be, for lack of better words, it would just be dumb just not to address this and keep thinking that things are going to change. So that's just my opinion. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sir.
I have a question. At the June 1st meeting, it was clear from my observation that Congressman King was willing to run with a bill if presented with one. And so my question is there some sort of understanding as far as a point person or organization that would assist in drafting that legislation?
I mean, I think
Come back.
We're working really closely with Congressman King's office on all of the efforts with IHS. So we would continue. I mean, I feel like this is just the start of that partnership, and we would continue to work very closely with them on all the other points that we need to hit. Yeah.
Sir.
And my follow-up is somewhat similar as far as timeline, and I know this is tough because it's the federal government, right, and there's a certain fluidity. Do we have any idea as far as anticipating when the IHS federal funding that was once lost and is sought to be regained? Because here's my concern in this, and I think it's probably all of the local entities around here. We commit to a certain amount that they otherwise were obligated or should have been funding in the first place, and they'll say, well, the city, the county, the hospitals, the different entities they've gone ahead and they're backfilling what we rightfully should have restored. So I guess there's one question, and along that same lines as a congressional allocation, do we have any idea on those 2 timelines of where, or is that tough to say?
Don't know on a timeline. We want to develop a timeline, which would probably be in phases. We haven't quite gotten to that place yet as far as the Detox Center itself. As far as the congressional allocation, it's something we're working on, and like Frank said, we're going to exhaust every option that we have because we do feel like they have an obligation to us. But we feel like because that moves so slowly, we want to get this established as soon as possible, and we also feel like it's our community's responsibility. As far as a congressional appropriation from IHS goes, that would probably last up to 5 years. So it'd be like seed money that would last for about 5 years. That's the way it is in Gallup and White Clay. So regardless, our community would need to sustain something like this. What we're thinking right now is that IHS funds could be used for any number of wraparound services, or for a halfway house, which we also need, which we have very few halfway houses here. So we're going to do everything we can to exhaust every option with IHS, but that's kind of where we're at. We need to move forward as a community, with or without them, with their understanding that they have an obligation here.
And then my other follow-on is with places where this has been done, like in Rapid City, I think there's a very, very good argument to be made that police make an arrest that takes costs for personnel. County jail, you feed, house, take care of medical needs, and then you can't any longer, so it falls to transporting, which takes more costs, and then you're dealing with somebody in a hospital situation. Is there anything in those situations where they've tried to capture, okay, we built a detox center, and since then we've lessened, and here are the costs that have been saved to taxpayers. You see what I'm saying, where
right.
You can capture?
Yep.
Do you know if that?
I have not seen that, but that is definitely something that we could try to get. Okay. And we are talking to Rapid City on pretty much a weekly basis at this point. Okay. So, yeah.
All right, great.
I feel like if we had the detox center, that would greatly help the police department, because right now, the jail is not the best place for those people. Some people just need to go to the hospital because they're in such bad shape that, their life is in jeopardy. But the hospital, for people who aren't quite there, or jail, probably not the most appropriate place, and that's costing us a lot of money.
There's one other thing I would share with you, and it's it's like full disclosure. I am concerned about those in our community, and I don't care what color they are. If they want to get well, we have to have a way of allowing them to do that. We see one opportunity with IHS, a small one. If we get that detox to work, I think other things will fall into place. And I think that's very important for all of us to understand. Native people are always the miner's canary. If things impact that community, they impact the rest of the community a year from now. And if we can find some resources and begin to take small steps, I think the community is going to, well, they've already bought in, but they're going to complement that. And I think that it'll have a spillover effect, throughout the community. Something not said here tonight, I'm going to say it. I'm going to make everybody embarrassed, and it has to be said. I do some work out there at that Women and Children's Center. Very recently, I had a parenting program, and there were 8 women there, and I asked a ridiculous question. And this was about setting goals for yourself. I said, how many of you own your own home? And none of these 8 Native women raised their hands, none of them. I expected that. Not everybody owns their home. And I said, okay. And this was to talk about aspiring to do things. How many of you 8 then rent your homes? And I expected, and none. And I was kind of taken aback. And I said, well, how many of you then live with your relatives? One of them on the end said, I do. But that's the reason I'm here, because there's addiction in that home. How many of you are homeless? All of them. All of them were homeless. And here's what I want to share. If we never talk about this again, it needs to be talked about tonight. When all of you as supervisors, in your mind's eye right now, if you took this test, to give it to your family tonight, in your mind's eye, you see these homeless people every day in our community. You walk out right now, you'll see them. In your mind's eye, I want you to stop and to think for a moment and picture that homeless person. And Keith, I know what you're going to picture. You're going to picture a man. I want you to think about that. You're going to picture a man. And maybe a Native man, but you're going to picture that, and that troubles me. Because, there's women. You don't see them readily there, because they have kids, and they huddle, and they're over here somewhere. And that's the challenge before us, is what we can see is tough enough for us to deal with. What we cannot see, is what women across our community should be clamoring about. Homelessness and addiction that impacts women. And when I said that to them, and I had 26 Native and non-Native women take that test the other day, my God, they all said they envision a man. And that's a challenge, and I don't want that to be lost. Much of what the work has done is we're talking about the homeless, we're talking about women, we're talking about children. There's an urgency in what we do, and that brings us here. Because I think in our community that we can address that. We're better than that. And it indeed does start when we start talking about it. You're talking about it, and we go to the council next week. We go to the council, I understand. I'm happy with that. I read the papers just like you do. I see the news. $11 million. Our good city fathers down there are going to build a parking ramp. So if I want to get liquored up, and I don't, I could do it. And I want to go spend all my money and gamble it, I can do that too. We can find that. And we did, and I'm happy for that. Maybe I'll even use that sometime. But as I prepared for this meeting and thought about the city council, I'm going to share something with you that is a reality. The people we're talking about in Woodbury County trying to impact positively are going to sleep in that parking ramp. Can we not see that? I think we can. And we will hold IHS feet to the fire. You help us. We will hold the congressman's feet to the fire. You help us. And we will get this done. We'll be a model community, and we don't have to take the back seat to Rapid City, to Sioux Falls, to Minneapolis, to Omaha. I've looked at them, and they have what we don't have. And I take a look at that, and we have every bit of commitment in the people. Big challenge. Thank you for hearing it, and let's get something done. We're on board. Took 20 years at White Clay, you know. I only got 30 more years left, you know. We'll get it done. So I hope you can stay engaged with us.
Any other questions? On behalf of the board, I would like to thank you all for appearing, and this is a huge problem.
Do we have to accept this?
Mr. Gill, do we have to accept this?
This wasn't on the...
No.
You don't? Okay. But again, I'd like to thank you all. We understand, I'm trying to understand how big an issue this is, and I applaud Congressman King for getting the ball rolling. I hope we can get something done. I hope we can get something started for today. Let's get started. So, thank you very much. All right. Item 12, secondary roads, Mr. Nera.
Did you have any bids? We had one of those. Okay. Do you have the letter with me?
Well, this will be short. We only ended up with one bid from, I can't tell, there's a seal over top of it. Iowa Plains signing of Slater, Iowa. Total bid price, $81,525. It's a little bit above our estimate. They're a quarter per gallon above our estimate. And the stop bars are double the estimated cost. The Port Neal markings are triple what had been estimated and what we had paid last year. I'm not sure we'll do better if we didn't have Vogel come in and bid this year. They must already be booked for the summer, so we only have about 4 paint contractors to draw from in the state. So
This isn't the one we're currently using?
we used Vogel in the past. Each year it's a new set of bids and a new contractor. So with having only received 1 bid, I recommend the board accept the bid from Iowa Plains Sign.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Young, second by Taylor to receive the bids and sign the bid.
Total price, by the way, was $81,525 based on plant quantity.
Are there questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
I just had one quick report if I could. Mason Avenue, south of Correctionville, we had a bridge that was damaged during the high water event they had. It was hit by multiple large trees, one of which lodged on the truss. The truss has been knocked about 4.5 inches out of alignment, so you can picture it in a big bow along the center line of the road. We have turned this information in to Iowa Homeland Security. It's being considered for possible FEMA assistance with the replacement. If that becomes necessary, we've engaged Calhoun Burns and Associates, our bridge inspection crew, to come in and do an in-depth structural inspection to see whether or not the bridge could be reopened even on a temporary basis. At this time, it remains closed until that structural evaluation is complete.
How long a span is that?
184 feet.
Oh, wow.
The main span's 110 feet long. It is in our 5-year program. The 5th year, it just entered the program this year. The bridge was built in 1915, the current one.
What's your timeline on finding out if FEMA, I actually heard about this at Joint Force Headquarters, where there's some Homeland Security folks talking about Woodbury County. Do you know what the timeline is on eligible FEMA funding?
FEMA may come out and take a review of the site and do a preliminary damage assessment on, they were talking next Monday or Tuesday. If they'll be awaiting what our structural engineer comes up with. They're bringing in a high range, high lift so that the inspectors can get up and see if there's any damage in the upper cords of the truss.
And then turn around from Monday to whenever, from the time they lay eyes on it until their response?
I'm thinking we should know whether or not we can reopen even at a reduced load by the middle of August. And we'll know, the estimated cost of replacement is about $700,000. So we only need to reach a threshold of about $350,000 to be eligible for FEMA. So we would be eligible to piggyback the declaration that's serving several other counties, even though we only have one site.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. 13, Building Services.
Building Services, Katy Schmitz. We sent out RFPs for a half-ton four-wheel drive pickup truck for the Building Services Department, which would replace a 1999 unit. We only received 1 bid back from Jensen Dealerships.
Did you bid out a certain brand of truck, or?
Not a particular brand. The letter went out to 5 different dealerships. They could bid a Ford, GMC, Chevy. I did make some, I did know that we had received only 1 bid, and so I did make some calls earlier today to the dealerships to find out, get a response from those that hadn't sent in a bid to find out why. And all the calls I made were to the sales managers. I I only received one call back, which is from Barry Motors, and the gentleman told me that they were just too busy and swamped to get a bid in. Of the other, Kneffler, yes, Kneffler did send a letter to me. It wasn't a bid. Kneffler, I'll just read you their response. Kneffler Chevrolet Company, sorry, we are unable to meet the spec for your 2019 model year. Thanks for consideration. Corey Derby. Now, for your information, we did spec a 2018 or a 2019 unit. The reason Kneffler couldn't spec a 2019 or bid a 2019 is in our specs, we requested a single cab pickup. In 2019, Chevrolet will not manufacture a 2019 single cab pickup. However, I did speak with Kneffler on the phone and said, you know, your option is you could bid a 2018 unit, and please feel free to do so, but they did not.
Could they not bid a crew cab or whatever if that was all they had?
I left that option open to bid whatever vehicle they would like to send in a bid on. So I didn't tell them they couldn't. I left it open that they could bid whatever unit they wanted to, and we would take a look at it. The bid received from Jensen Motors Incorporated, purchase price without trade $33,950 plus a $179 dock fee. Less trade, we also gave the dealerships an option to receive in trade our 1999 Dodge pickup. Their less trade price would be $1,700 for the Dodge, with a net purchase price of $32,250 plus a $179 dock fee. I would request or recommend that we receive the bid from Jensen dealership, and I go back and take a look at their bid and their specs, and come back and make a recommendation to the board at a later date.
I'll move to receive.
I will second the motion by Mr. Radig to receive the bid. Further questions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Board of Supervisors, Mr. Taylor, discussion and approval of matching contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your patience as we got to this item on the agenda. So Freeman Rock, number 61, is nearing completion, located in Anton, Iowa. And as you all know, you received a request for the amount of $2,950 to finish the historic county project. Funds have been raised to complete the paintings, roof to protect the Freedom Rock from the elements, lights for security, the kiosk for detailed narrative about each side of the rock, and a flagpole. I like to consider this or think of it as a monument to the historic dedication of America's and this area's fighting men and women, and of course features now General Bud Day. So the funds requested from Woodbury County would assist in completing the landscaping with a small retaining wall and concrete pads for the 2 memorial benches that have been donated. And I believe that we have Shirlene with us today, if you'd like to address the board. And thank you so much for being here and for what you do.
Well, thank you for having me. When Jeremy called, he asked me, you know, what funding, where the funding come from that we have so far, and what steps we had did. We tried MERD twice. They did not tell us why we were turned down or anything. To start out with, there was a group in our town committee that had what they called the Bomber Dash, was the activity that they did every summer with people. And they had a fund of $2,462, which they gave to us. 1,000 of that we used. I sent in to Bubba, our Sorensen, the painter, for the application for the Freeman Rock, for us to get it. And then from there, we had donations from, like Kevin Clausen gave 1,000, the Anthony Legion Ladies Auxiliary gave 1,000, Miss Van, a lady from Anthony, she ended up giving us 1,750. We had 2 memorials of past servicemen. The families gave us the money. One of them was for $1,330. The other one was for $543. Darwin Heyman gave us $5,200. That was to put a shelter over our rock to preserve it for years to come. Because with time and weather, it will take and chip the paint, you know, the hail will stuff. The shelter is to protect it so we can have it longer. The McNuff Post 389 gave us $200. The Morningside, and I hope I pronounced this right, Rosecroix Chapter 502 gave us $125. The Mobile Area Mason Center Incorporated gave us $500. The the Woodbury County American Legion gave us $1,000. Jebro Incorporated gave us $500. And the Woodbury County Fair, the booth, the Woodbury County Fair Board gave us the booth free. And there, when we sat there, we got to $275. The rest of the money that we got was donations, fundraisers, and the one that touched me the most was a little girl at the Mobile Fair. I get emotional. I'm sorry. A little girl from the Mobile Fair came up and she looked at our display, asked me about it. She come back a little bit later and opened up her little coin purse and dumped it in our jar. And from that, we have had donations all the way from that little girl up to $500. And and I guess what we need to do, we need a little more money to take and do a little landscaping around it. On the north side, there's a little incline, and I have noticed people walking up on that incline to take pictures of the north side. We would like to take and dig that out and make it more level, make it safer for people to take pictures on that side. And then we also would like to have 2 cement slabs put in for the memorial benches that we have had donated. So anything that you will be able to give us would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Julian, are you still at the $2,050 remaining? Is that still your?
Well, it'll take, we have some, but it'll take probably, the estimates that I've gotten so far on the cement and the land, you know, what we need done, we're going to have to come up with maybe $500 more. Plus what, if you give us, and then what we already have is what it looks like.
So that'd be about the $2,950 is what's remaining essentially. Is that right?
Yeah, we have $2,950, and then if you give us $25, and unless we can get some, I got to talk to the contract, you know, the person that we had talked to about doing this, see if we can cut corners someplace. If not, we have a couple of fundraisers in mind that later this fall, like one of them will be a soup supper, and we'll do some more fundraisers to maybe get the rest of it.
In the future, do you have any thoughts for using money from fundraisers for upkeep, or is this basically the final completion?
Yes, we'll have to, we will have fundraisers. If there needs to be upkeep, we'll have fundraisers to, take care of that. As far as the electric bill, the town is furnishing that to keep the flag lit and the shelter, the rock lit. So, yeah.
Well, I think of many, when you consider all the requests the county gets for money, you've done the work. You've held the fundraisers, and I think we can appreciate that. That's probably why this is on the agenda. But I think that, I'd make a motion to grant the $2,950 request from gaming.
I'll second that.
Motion by Young, second by Taylor for the $2,950 to come from gaming. Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Are you going to be around a few minutes yet after the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Passes 5-0. Number 15, Sheriff Drew. Approval to tie the existing Millennium Access Control System at Prosper Hoyt to the LEC/Courthouse Millennium Control System.
Todd Wick, Sheriff's Office. What you have in front of you there is a request for funding to move that access control system into an IT closet across the hall from the DHS office on the second floor. They currently have control of it with the computer equipment there. That was all installed in 1995. And obviously now the Sheriff's Office has control of the LEC and the courthouse, and it makes sense that that system be tied to our system through the network so that our office has control of all three buildings for the door fob system. They are willing to, it's been discussed in our building security meetings, past couple times we've had meetings, and the state actually came to me and said they were ready to give up control of it and give it to the county.
I would move approval.
Second.
Further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Mr. Butler.
We need to identify where to pay this from. They do not have that in our budget. There's two suggestions.
You said out of gaming, or no, sorry.
Gaming or CIP. I did
Last
talk to
time.
Kenny ahead of time. We do have money left over from the intake that we did not do. There are funds available there, so probably look at CIP first, gaming second. Save gaming for other things, because this is a one-time deal.
I'm on a motion to say out of CIP.
Second. Motion by Taylor, second by Potabom to take the money from CIP. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That one passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have to wait until the citizens' concerns to ask you guys to sing happy birthday to the sheriff?
Do it right now.
Sir.
I'm waiting for the next agenda item. I'm very anxious.
Item 16. Item 16A, approval of the allocation of room and board of prisoners held at the LEC. Jeremy Taylor and Mr. Butler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So this action is being requested in regards to the allocation of room and board. This is an issue that we've talked about in the past as to what code references as far as room and board, and that's revenue, of course, paid by the inmates of the LEC, and it's being proposed to make an allocation of 45% of all room and board revenue collected by the sheriff to a standalone fund called Sheriff's Room and Board. That would be a subsidiary fund of the General Basic Fund to be used at the discretion of the sheriff. Of course, it has to come back to the board for final approval. All unexpected revenues will carry over for the following fiscal years, and the split would start July 1st, 2018. And so with that, there's a breakdown, and Dennis, I can hand it over to you as to how the current funds and the split will be allocated.
We had the current funds collected for 2018 as of June 30th was $309,569.95. They did send over a couple days ago, and it's been received in Treasurer's Office $29,000 for June. So when I add that on, that does increase our numbers here to $338,569. There are funds in there that were collected because there's a slight misunderstanding, but we got that corrected out. Some of these funds are carried over for the last year and 6 months. So there is an influx here. It's higher than it would normally be, but all the money has been turned over to General Basic Fund. Now we're just requesting to be split with agreement of the Sheriff's Office, where we would send $138,569.95 over to this new fund. That'd cover the fiscal year 18 and part of 17, and then in the future we take 40. We'll set up 2 account codes, one for General Basic, one for the Sheriff's Room and Board Fund. It'll be split 45% to 55%. Again, that money will be carried over for potential project they may have down the road. Could be carried 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years or whatever. So that money will continuously accumulate. That would leave $200,000 for the current fiscal year of 18 we just finished, which meets the estimate that was put into the budget. Currently this year there's $175,000 put in. We will review that with the Sheriff's Office for fiscal year 20 budget. It's too late to change that, but when you do the split and everything, we will probably be about, well, I did have 96, but it'll be less than that because we got 39,000 or 29,000. So when it comes down to it for fiscal year 19, if we do collect the $175,000, which is anticipated, General Basic would get $96,250. The Sheriff's Fund would get $78,750. So again, that'd be accumulated through the years for some project they could determine to bring back to the board, say this is how we'd like it to be spent. Is it the discretion of the Sheriff's Office, just like the county attorney collects fines where they have a special fund that they designate how they'd like to spend it, but it has to be finally approved by the Board of Supervisors. And the money we're putting in there from the current fiscal year of $138,000, we will address that on another item coming up. I think that's item number B. So that's coming up shortly. So this is getting where it is. The Code of Iowa allows this, and they're being gracious enough to instead of 60% do 45%, and everybody's somewhat happy, I guess. We're fine. They're happy.
That was my question. How did we come to that number?
Through discussions with Jeremy, was over there, I believe, and we were there, and we kind of came to a meeting of the minds where we didn't want to lose the money, because if we lose the money in General Basic, that really was offsetting taxation. So this is kind of a compromise here where we follow what the code says somewhat and what we can live with here. So there's other places we will make up the revenue. And 175, if they do really good, they can collect more than that, so everything goes back up, so we won't be short anything.
Does code require anything specific?
Code does say, I think, 60%. Correct. But they're willing to go to 45%, so it doesn't hit the taxpayer that much. 45,000, isn't that much.
How long has the code been in place on this?
Oh, it's been there a while. It's been a long time. It's been there quite a while.
10, 20 years.
Yeah, at least.
They're just now taking care of it, huh? Or somewhat.
We can't undo the past.
I know.
I'm just not sure about the name, the Sheriff's Room and Board Fund.
We can name it.
Bed and breakfast, room and board.
It just scares me.
Anything you'd like.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday. Come down. So I guess the motion would be, as I stated down below here.
So I think the other thing that this does is it makes it clean as far as where the funds are to be held and when they're to be transferred. So just, and because we have relied on that as far as offsetting taxes, I think it keeps us whole during this next year and then makes that allocation a little cleaner for the next. So.
We agree 100%. We don't want to be in charge of the money. Give it to that and let them have it.
So I would move to establish a subsidiary fund titled Sheriff's Room and Board under the General Basic Fund, 45% of room and board collected by the sheriff to go to this fund with the other 55% deposited in the General Basic Fund.
Motion by Taylor, second by DeWitt. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item B, discussion and approval of purchase of whole body digital security imaging equipment for the purpose of identifying illegal contraband.
So due to circumstances in Woodbury County Jail, there's a need for this whole body digital security imaging equipment. In fact, I saw on somebody who is missing in action, I'm sure there's a better term for it, that there had been an attempt to smuggle in contraband into the Woodbury County Jail. And my understanding is at about that, and then my nose goes from an inch above the water to an inch below, and that's where I turn it over to experts like Tony Wingert to explain the practical application.
Tony Wingert, Sheriff's Office. We've been looking at this for a couple of years, and it all sort of ties back into room and board, but that's taken care of. We have had issues in the past, and every correctional facility in the United States have issues with people trying to smuggle either weapons or contraband into their facilities. Just recently, as of a couple months ago, we had something make it back into a long-term section that caused us to have to take response with emergency medical precautions to get people looked at. More likely it was some kind of methamphetamine or cocaine that made it back into a section, and my men and women that work up there do a good job of searching them and prepping them, but we have restrictions by law that we can't search body cavities without a doctor's order. So if somebody has either swallowed something or smuggled something, we have no way of knowing that. And God forbid if a weapon ever makes it into a section. So far we've been really lucky with that. But we have had illegal contraband of some sort make it back into sections. And this machine that we're looking at will combat that. You got questions on what it does, I can answer that, but what we will use it for is anybody that is booked into our facility will go through this scanner, total body scanner. They'll stand on a platform, it rotates through a beam of x-ray, gives them a low dose x-ray, and we can see places that the courts have said that's not intrusive, you can go ahead and use that. Technology has advanced far enough that it's not dangerous to, my company says you could do it 1,000 times a year, the same person, but they've set it to 400 times a year, and we never have anybody coming into our facility 400 times in a year. And the system is set up that once they hit that 400 time threshold, they can no longer be scanned. The system won't allow them to be scanned. So there's safeguards that we're not eradicating. Somebody. We really like this company because we looked at other companies across the country. This one is already being used in Pottawatomie County, down in Council Bluffs. Unfortunately, with their issue with them losing a deputy over a year ago, they went and bought one of these. They have done all the heavy lifting to clear it with the state and jump through the state's thresholds to have this machine in a facility, and that we have been in close talks with them. They have graciously granted you can have all our paperwork. When the state starts talking to you, we will walk you through this process. So it took them 3 to 4 months before they could actually start using their machine. So I anticipate if we get this, we'll be up and running a lot sooner.
I'm not sure I even want to ask this question, but once you discover that something's there in a place that you normally wouldn't be allowed to search, what's the next step then?
And you have probable cause to write a search.
Okay, then you can.
That's
got it.
photographic proof that there's something that then any judge will sign off on a search warrant that we can take them up to a hospital and have a doctor take care of that. We won't be doing that. It'll be a doctor. And if you guys want, I have pictures of that, of other agencies, the company that sent us scanners of what they found. I mean, I can show them to you if you want. One's a knife, one's drugs, two of them are drugs. So it will make my people sleep a lot better at night, knowing, and just word of mouth. First few people that get arrested and booked into our facility, they'll start talking to other people, and that will help take care of the problem where, well, we're not going to try and bring anything into Woodbury County anymore.
And just to be clear on this, the room and board revenues that you all as a board just approved will take care of $109,580 of the $185,000 cost. To make up for the gap would be $75,420 in CIP. Am I wrong?
More than that.
Okay, that has changed. We had 29,000, so the new number is 138,569.
Okay.
And then the balance would be, I believe, 40. The balance would be 46,430 out of CIP. So that take care of the money they collected in June up through June 3018. And they start fresh by accumulating this money over the years. So it'll be 138,570 from the board, room and board, 46,430. That does cover the machine, plus also a 5-year warranty on parts, labor and parts, and they do give training the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th year. I think it's 2 days, isn't it?
That was a big selling point for this company, is continual training, is they'll come back up through the 5th year for officers' turnovers to train new people and use it. And the tech that operates the system or will work on it is in Omaha. So he can be up here the next day if something does go wrong with the system. So that was a big selling point for this one also.
But you wouldn't tell the inmates that it's broken, you just run them through and pretend it works anyway?
We'll have to see if it'll take any kind of picture. Sure factor.
Will they allow you to train your own trainers for future years?
Yes. No, that's what they want. They want a core group of trainers that they work closely with, and then our trainers then can
train your own people.
Push it out to the other officers.
If you want these individually, like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, by doing it with this program here, you save about $12,000.
The maintenance contract.
Right. So it's recommended just go to $30,000 plus one.
So is there ongoing operation expenses with this or no?
Software updates, but for the first 5 years that will be covered. After that, we'll have to revisit it. I
Use the room and board to cover that, huh?
It could. That's definitely, we let that grow. That's something that it could be used for.
Sounds good.
In the other county, you mentioned Potawatomi. Did you get any insight on the worth of the optional 2nd+ year warranties?
That's what Dennis was just talking about. Just having it, so if something does go bad in the first 5 years, it's just a phone call, no questions asked. They come the next day and they're getting it back up. And Pot has had it go down once. It was an officer error that screwed something up that it wouldn't work. The next day he was there up and running and walked out the door and there was no charge.
So I'd move to purchase a Secure Pass whole body security scanning system with 5-year parts and labor warranty coverage and refresher operator training funded by Sheriff's Room and Board, $138,570, and FY 2019 CIP at $46,430.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Ung. Further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Hospitals will love those referrals.
Reports on committee meetings.
Mr. Chair, we have Rolling Hills meeting August 1st, and I understand that you may
I have it penciled in.
Okay, appreciate it very much. And it sounds like the CEO there has been reaching out to Woodbury County providers and very positive response. So very, very good.
If you hear more details on when and where, I would appreciate that. So
I'll let you know.
Any other committees? I've got some Simcoe stuff for you out in the truck. I'll drop that off in your mail slot, nothing big. Marty? Citizen concerns, round 2. Hearing none, board concerns. We are adjourned.